Welcome back to Score on Business. Hey, remember to check out scorenashville.org. Okay, our next guest is Krista Callender. So Krista is a strategic advisor with Lexical. I meant to ask how to pronounce that.
Lexical Intelligence.
Okay, Lexical Intelligence. She is currently an equity partner and strategic advisor for Lexical Intelligence, a startup providing real-time data and analysis to the biopharma sector. Krista has more than 20 years of experience with small and large businesses, having previously joined an organization as employee number 12, and after starting her own company, Krista has a passion and interest in helping companies scale and grow.
I do.
So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
And let me ask, so can you briefly share, we're going to be talking about systems and process for entrepreneurs and small businesses. What is what do you mean by systems and process?
Sure.
And what's most important for entrepreneurs?
Yep, absolutely. So processes are a conceptual sequence of events that allow business people to successfully repeat what they need to do. Processes produce outputs. Systems, on the other hand, are a collection of processes, and they produce results based on the interaction of those processes. Or another way of thinking of it is to say that a system is what's used to actually execute a process. But regardless of your definition of a system, I think what's more important for entrepreneurial companies are really to focus on the basic processes that they need.
Okay. Okay. So you've worked with a number of small companies that have scaled and grown significantly. How much process should a small company have, and how are some ways they can determine that?
Sure, that's a great question. It's always a delicate balance between being able to get work done as quickly as possible for a small entrepreneurial company, but yet creating repeatable good habits for the organization. So one of the things that I've found works well is for a company to evaluate which of their primary activities they're doing repeatedly, and then define a skeleton process around those basic activities, and that will help to balance between structure and the ability to adapt and create as needed. Entrepreneurs have to be able to adapt very, very quickly. They have to make changes, and process should not get in the way of doing that. But finding the right balance, creating the basic framework will help a company to be able to scale and grow.
Could you give a brief example of something that could be a process, and then how they would use it? Like, would they program it into software or whatever?
Oh, sure. So a good process, and we actually created this pretty early in the life cycle of Lexical Intelligence, for a company that's making sales and creating invoices, I highly recommend that a company have an invoicing and payment tracking process. The rationale for that is that the work is being done repetitively. It needs to be done correctly, because there's a monetary consequence to not doing it correctly. And then the tools can be things as basic as spreadsheets, and as a company grows and it makes sense to invest further in more complex tools at that point.
Okay, good, that makes sense. So updating these processes takes time. How can small companies manage this without taking away from the core work?
I know a lot of people cringe when they hear the word process. They think it means extra documentation, work that doesn't relate to producing things. But in order to keep processes up to date, what I've found works really well is to just do it on a regular basis, weekly, for example. But depending on the pace of change, you can determine the frequency of how often the updates are made. And by addressing those updates in a regular forum, a regular staff meeting, for example, or some other standing meeting, means that the process can be very quickly addressed, updates can be discussed, and someone can volunteer to make the update in the documentation afterwards. The other thing I want to point out about that is that it's important for people to have access to the processes they need. Otherwise, it's easy to forget to make updates. It's easy to forget to use the process altogether, which is worse yet. So I would suggest something as simple as sharing that process documentation on a shared server or a shared drive, like Google Drive, for example.
Something like that.
Something very simple to set up. it can actually have controlled access, but that way the people that need to get to it can very quickly and easily.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to take a break right quick. Remember, scorenashville.org. We'll be right back.